When I was younger, I thought I could fix people. And if they would only listen to my advice, they'd have a much better life. And then sometimes I even did have the answers. For example, if someone would come up to me and say, I don't feel close to God, I might reply, well, you should pray more. Was I wrong? Well, no. The Bible says we should pray without ceasing. So I felt that I was on firm ground in my response. The problem was that my advice would shut down a conversation or annoy the person that I meant to help. And ultimately, they didn't really change, and my approach wasn't successful. And I've come to the conclusion that it is far better for me to just listen. It says in Proverbs that the one who gives an answer before he listens, that is his folly and his shame. So I have learned that the way to help someone is for them to come to their own conclusions. See, if they say it, they own it. And if I say it, well, they may or may not accept it. There's a great book called Motivational Interviewing that lays out how to help people change. And the techniques in this book are fantastic. Whether you mentor couples, you lead a small group, or you just want to be a good listener. And one of the interesting techniques they teach is the use of reflective statements. A reflective statement makes a guess about what a person means. This helps a person to explore their thinking. And their study has shown that statements rather than questions are more effective. So they use some examples. And you might listen for the difference. So let's say I say, you're feeling uncomfortable versus you're feeling uncomfortable. Or you don't think this is a problem versus you don't think this is a problem. Or you're considering a divorce versus you're considering a divorce. Can you hear the subtle difference? They have found that asking people questions to explain themselves causes them to distance themselves from what they are experiencing. And it puts them more on an analytical path, and they wonder if they should have expressed what they said or not. And I like that distinction. I would rather someone feel free to express themselves than second guessing what they should or shouldn't be saying. So we teach mentors to reflect back what they hear, and we encourage them to be tentative, since they might not be understanding what someone is saying. So I have had the habit of responding to someone with, what I hear you saying is, and I'm now working on shortening my statements a little bit. So I'm leaving out the what I'm hearing you saying and just getting right to the point. And when we teach listening skills, people will start with simple statements. So, let's say a woman says, I'm unhappy with our marriage. I might reply, you're unhappy. So it's basically repeating what you heard. And this is okay, and it has a place. And when you're new, that's kind of what you're good at doing. And when you get better at this, you can add more complexity to your response. This means taking a guess at what they're really thinking or feeling, and it extends the understanding that you both have. So let's say, husband says, I don't like it that my wife criticizes me as soon as I walk in the door. I have some different options of the ways I could respond. I could say, I don't like when that happens to me either. That's not a good response. That's not listening. That's just editorializing. I could say, you feel criticized. And that's a simple statement because he did say that he feels criticized. But I think a better way would be something like this. You work late because you don't want to be criticized. So I added the guess about working late. And adding a guess to the statement can bring the conversation to a new level, and it offers insight to the person. And when you get it right, the person will open up more and they feel more understood. So let's say then the husband says, yes, I either work late or I immediately go turn on the TV so I don't have to talk to her. I could say, that increases your disconnection to your wife. And he could say back, yes, it's causing us to live as roommates. I might say, you don't want to live that way. Did you see that example was adding a guess? I didn't just reflect back exactly what he said. So I've gotten better at doing this with simple statements. I started with simple statements, and I've learned to listen for what's underneath, and I listen for the feeling. And as my understanding of conflict patterns has grown, I've gotten better at adding insight to my statement. So, what if you get it wrong? Well, when I get it wrong, the person usually clarifies the misunderstanding and goes on, and they appreciate that I'm trying to listen. And at worst, I can say, I'm sorry if I misunderstood that. So my wife and I have been working with couples for over 15 years, and it's taken me a long time to learn better techniques. And this is a listening technique that you can master, but it does take some time and some practice to be able to improve on. So let me give you some tips. 1, don't beat yourself up. Sometimes when I talk about techniques like this, I fear I'm making this too complex. And if this seems difficult, just stick with simple statements. Couples are going to appreciate that you care for them. 2, try a statement rather than a question. Reflect back a statement. I found that this helps people to be able to understand themselves better. And my 3rd tip is extend the understanding by making a guess. So make an educated guess on what they're thinking or feeling. So those tips again: 1, don't beat yourself up. 2, try a statement rather than a question. And 3, extend understanding by making a guess.